appreciate you being here. I'm Nia Schooler. I'm a member of the Decatur Parent Network, which was formed in the spring of 2016 in response to several events at the school and with our own children. When you find your kids are making choices that are not in line with the values that you believe you've taught them, and it becomes quite concerning. You see that they may be going down a path you don't want them to go. You become kind of isolated yourself because you don't feel that you can share this with everybody. At least that was my experience when my son started making choices that were not the best for him. So several of us had a few conversations recognizing that there are many families in Decatur who were experiencing the same thing that I was. That we don't really want to circle the wagons. It's not good for us, it's not good for the kids, it's not good for our community. So we decided to form a parent network where the goal was to support one another, to raise the level of awareness with what's happening with our kids in school. And now that social media is out there, they are much more informed than we are at times about different paths of mischief and drugs and underage drinking and all of these things that concern us so much. So we wanted to get away from this being a lonely and isolated world for the parents and make it a true community where we can all agree that these are good kids. They make bad choices sometimes, as teenagers do, and we want to be supportive of one another and not judgmental of the kids. And so that's why we formed the Parent Network with the idea primarily to form a community. And we've done several things in this past year. We created a website and put a lot of resources on the website that you can go to find out answers and solutions for some of the challenges that you or your children may be facing regarding risky behaviors. We started this speaker series last year. Once a month we would hold a meeting or an event with a speaker on such topics as the impact of underage drinking and drugs on the teenage brain, Substance Abuse 101, what is out there and what we need to know as parents. We included topics on bullying and how to support your children if they are experiencing that. And I'm actually forgetting a couple more of them, but we had something every month. We intend to do that again this year, and this is the first one. We thank you so much for coming out. We have a series of speakers tonight. First, I'm very thankful to Dr. Duty to make a few introductory remarks. And after Dr. Duty will be Lori Heeman and Lieutenant Chris Clark, who is in charge of the SROs in the schools. And then Terrie Moore is going to present some data from the student health surveys, which kind of show that we've made some improvement over this last year with some of the risky behaviors that our kids are taking part in. Fewer of them are taking part in. And then we're going to have a question and answer period. Afterwards, we'll be out in the audience with microphones so you can stand and speak, or if you have one of the note cards that were handed out in the beginning and you prefer to just hand your question in for us to address, we're happy to do that. And then Deborah McCall will wrap us up this evening. So thanks so very much for being here. Dr. Duty?
Sorry, just pulling up my notes here. Oh, almost pasted something into it by mistake. Okay, this should be fun. All right. Good evening, everyone. It's really a privilege to be here tonight. I remember the very first one of these events that we had, and I thought that it was not that long ago, but then when I went to pull some updated data from what I had pulled the last time I was here, I noticed there were 2 more years of data than what I had last time. So I thought, well, that's pretty positive that we've had that much time that we've been able to do these things. So let me figure out, I am going to pull up a couple graphs here. Is that all right? Yeah. As you know, there's a lot going on in our country and in our school system. As Nia was saying, the group of parents got together and decided that here in Decatur we were going to do something about it. And one of the things that I've seen a lot about in the news lately is the opioid crisis. And we finally have had that acknowledged at the federal level. And that is something that there's no community that escapes that kind of thing. And it's good to know that in a place like Decatur, we're tackling these challenges head on and we're talking about them and we're doing what we can to support our students. I want to present a couple slides from that Georgia Student Health Survey that Nia mentioned, and you're going to see some more information about this later tonight. These are 3 slides, or 3 pieces of information that I actually presented the very first time that we got together, and they're about alcohol and drug use. So let me explain what this slide is showing you, because there's a lot there. So the Georgia Student Health Survey asks a series of questions to students throughout all of Georgia, and it asks them to rank certain things as on the scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree, or sometimes it'll be how many times have you done some activity, okay? So this question here, the kids are asked how many times in the past 30 days have you had at least 1 drink of alcohol? And they can answer anything from 0 to 30, okay? As I was pulling the data together, I decided I really wanted to focus on the positive because I was starting to notice some interesting things. And so what this is how many answered 0, okay? So how many of those students have said they have not had at least 1 drink of alcohol in the past 30 days? So what we want to see are taller bars. That's a good thing, okay? Now, this is 3 years of data, so each chunk of bars there, 2014-15, middle is 2015-16, and the right is 2016-17. Within each of those chunks are grade levels, from 6th grade through 12th grade, okay? So what you can see with those the red line there, that's the average across all grades. And there is a slight but positive trend. We go from about 83% of students saying they had not had a drink in the past 30 days to about 87% of students, okay? I'll come back to some of the things on this graph in a moment. One of the other questions asked them about binge drinking, and they defined binge drinking in the survey as 5 or more drinks within a couple hours. And it's the same kind of question, how many times have you done this? You can answer 0 to 30. And so it's good to see that even more students say they haven't had binge drinking in the past 30 days when they took the survey. And again, if you look at those red averages for the overall group, you see a slight positive trend from just over 90% to almost 95%. Okay? And then the third graph that I presented previously, and I'll present here again tonight, is about marijuana. So this question was asking how many times in the past 30 days did you use marijuana? And this is the percent of students who have not used marijuana in the past 30 days. And again, you see a very slight positive trend in the averages, and it goes from just under 90% to a little bit over 90%. Okay, so positive in many regards. I like to see the positive trend, even though it's very tiny. I like to see a lot of bars that are almost at 100%. But the other thing I'm sure you've all noticed is that those bars are not consistently high. And you especially see it in this graph. Whereas they go from 6th grade to 12th grade, you have far fewer students saying they have not had 1 drink in the past 30 days. If you look at seniors, for instance, in 2015-16, can you see that on there? Yeah. In 2015-16, this dark bar right here, there were more students who said they had had a drink than there were students who said they had not. I don't know about you, but that's extremely concerning to me. You're still in high school, you're a senior, right? Now, the good news is that's now up to 60-40, 60% saying they have not had a drink, 40% saying they have, but still a long way to go. There are a lot of things that we are working on within the school district to address issues like this. One of them that is, I'm really excited about, and you're going to hear a lot more about coming forward or moving forward, is our Student Growth Network, or some people, we've been referring to it as our Student Success Center. We have hired an amazing person to come in and help lead this effort to provide resources, starting at the high school, but ultimately going into all grades, to help support students with whatever kind of support they need, whether that is mental health, whether it is drug abuse prevention, whether it is counseling, whatever that looks like. And so we are in the midst of putting all of that together right now. So be watching for that, because that is some exciting stuff. And it's really taking us and our community to the next level of how we support students. We all have heard a lot about how stressed our students are. You have an IB program. There are a lot of demands put on our upper level students especially, and our juniors and seniors. And we want to make sure we're doing what we can to support those students so they don't have to turn to alcohol and drugs in order to help manage that situation. I promised I'd keep my comments brief, partly because I have to run, but I want you to know that I will respond to questions that I was not here to be for the question and answer session at the end. Mr. Dwayne Spruill has volunteered to stand in for me, and I'm sure he'll have all the answers, but if there's any he just refuses to answer, right, Dwayne? I see you back there. We'll get the questions to me, and I'll make sure either I'll answer them or I'll get someone to answer them. So when it gets to that point, and it's something that even if it's specific for me, please at least write it down on those cards, and we'll make sure to get you an answer. So it is my pleasure now to introduce our next speaker. Mrs. Lori Heeman has been a critical force in getting the Student Growth Network off and running. She is very supportive of all of the efforts that we're doing in our school district to help protect our students and help support our students. So, Lori, I wish I could stay to hear your comments, but I'm gonna have to run, but I'll watch the video. I see a camera back there. So, Lori Heeman.
Can I close this?
Yes.
So hi, my name is Lori Heeman, and I would like to tell you about my son, Joe Bodine. He was smart, athletic, handsome, funny, popular, and kind. He was a big brother. He had parents who loved him. He had an extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. He went to pre-K at Glenwood and graduated from Decatur in 2015. And on May 25th, 2016, he died of a heroin and cocaine overdose. I tell you all this to make a point that Joe did not come from the stereotypical background that you might think of in your head of an addict. He lived his entire life here in Decatur. He went to our fine schools. He played at the rec center. He made the varsity lacrosse team as a freshman. He had an educator mother. I'm a high school student, high school teacher. I've spent my whole life working with at-risk students, which is irony for you. My sister is in the medical field. She's a mental health professional. He had talent and resources. He had love, lots of love, and he still died. So when I was asked to talk today, I agreed, but I want to make it clear that I am not an expert in mental health or addiction. I am not the expert. I'm just a mom that had the experience with my child. And so Nia asked me if I could kind of explain my experience and give you some pointers if there are any, and then go from there. So I'm not sure exactly when Joe started to use alcohol and drugs. If I were to guess, I would say it was probably in the 8th grade, or maybe even earlier. By the end of his freshman year at Decatur, he was very far into his addiction, and we were already seeking treatments for him, both inpatient and outpatient. And I want to make it clear also that Joe did not leave the city of Decatur to get his drugs. This is a problem that's here. He did not go outside the city of Decatur to find his heroin and his cocaine. Over the 3-4 years of his high school, he spent in and out of Decatur High School, in and out of intensive outpatient programs, in and out of residential treatment programs. And he would come back great, ready to roll, but slowly but surely fall back into his disease. And then the rest of us would fall back into it with him, because it destroys families, people who care about him, who care about me, who care about his sister. So things to look for in your child, things that were with Joe that I might throw out there for you to look for if you're concerned. Depression and anxiety. Decatur is very high level stress. We've done with the work on the center, a few surveys, and every single time the top level thing with the kids in Decatur is stress level. Whether it's social, home, academic, peers, whatever, stress. Falling grades. My son was extraordinarily smart, scary smart. Grades started to fall, attendance started to fall. Different friends. I'm sure you've heard a lot of these before, but they're true. When your kid starts hanging out with people you don't know, it's something to look into. Stealing. He started to steal, make excuses, blame everybody else. Aggression or disruptive behavior, not following family rules, lying. All those things you hear about, they tell you on the Today Show, it's true. Keep an eye out for them. But I will say that your child may have some of those and may not have some of those. That's the hard thing about addiction. It's a hard thing about teenagers. It manifests itself differently, and you really don't know. You just have to keep after it. What to do? I've had a lot of people ask me what to do when they've been worried about their kids, which I kind of find interesting because I was not able to keep mine safe. But what I would say is take it seriously. It might be a phase. It might be things that teenagers do. It might not be. Listen to yourself. If you're worried, listen. Don't wait. Stay engaged. Talk to your child even when they don't want to talk. Teenagers never want to talk. They don't want to tell you. You got to make them sit down and do it. Ask them who they're hanging out with, what they're doing after school, where they're going. Talk to other parents. That's what's great about the Decatur Parent Network. Talk to other parents, find out. Don't kill the messenger. If somebody tells you that they're worried about your kid, don't say you don't know what you're talking about. Just listen. Be not defensive. Question your pediatrician and dentist about painkillers. Joe, as an athlete, got concussions, twisted ankles, wisdom teeth pulled out. Do you really need what some doctors are prescribing? And do you need 20 pills of that prescription? So really be active and ask, because some doctors that's just what they've always done. Ask for help. You'll need it. Your child will need it. Nobody knows everything. Nobody can do everything. It's very hard, but ask for help. If you determine that your child has a problem, remember that it is a disease and not a failure of character. Not your character and not your kid's character. And when you know somebody else's kid who might be in trouble, please try to remember that with them. It is not a failure of their character. It is a disease. There are not bad kids and good kids. There are kids. And don't give up. Try everything. Try everything until you find out what works for your child. Because, I'm sorry, because you don't want to join my club, this club that I'm in, of the parents who have lost their children. And I love Decatur. I've lived here for a long time. I moved here for my children, for the schools. I've volunteered, served on boards. And I ask you for us to please change the dialogue about what it is for people that struggle with mental health and substance abuse. I should have prepared. And I'll give you an example. I was watching Channel 2 the other day, and there was a story on it about Ridgeview. You know Ridgeview, the mental hospital. And it was the story about how patients were escaping. And they interviewed this woman who found a patient in her backyard. And she described the patient in this way. This wide-eyed woman ended up in my yard. She wanted to say, we don't know. What if they're on drugs or have weapons or what? The story talked about Ridgeview, the issues of the facility, the neighborhoods around the facility, but not once did the story address the patients. Not once did the story say, well, what kind of care are these patients getting if they are wandering around the neighborhood? Is that person, not once did they say, this is not a wide-eyed, crazy person, but a person that needed help and perhaps really isn't receiving it. Not once did the reporter say anything, not once did the people that were interviewed say anything, not once did they mention the patients, other than in that way of wide-eyed, crazy, drug addict, weapons. Those were the words. They were all just addicts and crazy people. Those people. Well, Joe was those people. He was one of those. My hope is that we as a community can work together to help those people. One of those people may, before you know it, be one of your people. And you're going to need the kindness and help of others. I encourage you to get involved with efforts to address mental health and addiction, especially with our children. There are lots of things going on in this great community. The center that we are working on at the high school, the Parent Network, the Decatur Prevention Initiative, DeKalb County's bringing in, and everybody has talents and time and caring. I just encourage you to do it, because if you wait, it might be your kid or your sister or whatever. We must talk about it and not be ashamed. We must talk about it and understand it and treat it with kindness. Be good friends and neighbors to each other and use our talents to make a difference in this community and in this world. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Thank you. I think they got all of this. This is why we do what we do. And I want to take a moment now to introduce someone else that I have personally been working with, and I'm so excited about. He'll tell you I failed part of Police Academy, so we won't even go there. But I want to introduce to you guys Lieutenant Chris Clark, who is with the Decatur City Police, but is also over our school resource officers. So he has a foot in both camps. Yes.
Good afternoon. Evening, I'm sorry. I am Chris Clark.
Can you push the mic up a little bit so you can hear better? Thank
Is
you.
that better?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think this is going to stay. But I am Chris Clark. I'm the lieutenant of the City of Decatur Police Department. I worked at Decatur for over 13 years now. As a lieutenant, I supervised the Criminal Investigations Division and the Special Units Division. In the Special Units Division, we do have the SROs, the traffic unit. We also supervise the school crossing guards. And I don't know if you noticed it or not, we have 32 school crossing guards that are part-time employees. And that's a full-time job, actually, but we're glad we have them. They help us a lot because if they didn't, we'd be out there crossing the kids. I do want to say thank you for having me here tonight. Thank you for coming. I want to just give you some facts that we have about Decatur Police and some of the related topics here. It's not a lot of information, but it's very brief. But I did want to share it with you since it goes along with it. We have been partnered with the Decatur Preventive Initiative for several years now. It started through Lieutenant Ross, and now I've kind of gotten involved since I'm over the school resource officers. We attend the CPAW meetings every month and discuss a lot of things that the council talks about. The SROs attend these same meetings. I've attended several, so we are involved. And fortunately, to being involved with the DPI, we were able to get a drug drop box. And it looks like a mailbox, like you see on the road, the blue box, but it's actually put in our police department's front lobby. And that's for people to come by and drop unwanted over-the-counter drugs and prescription drugs that they no longer need. And it's really good that you do that because you're getting it out of your home and getting away from the access that people have. You know, you take care of you remove the drugs from the home that you're not using, it cuts on the access people have to it. And just today, this box was installed in October of 2016, and so far we've emptied it, and we've counted up, we've had 409 pounds of recovered over-the-counter drugs and prescription drugs, and we've only emptied it like 8 times, so that's a pretty good amount of people turning in, their use-inspired drugs. Also, we participate with the DEA. We do the drug take-backs that you probably see advertised. We were doing 2 a year. We cut back to 1 a year, but since we've been doing that since 2013, we've collected at the City of Decatur Police Department over 1,100 pounds of over-the-counter drugs and prescription drugs that people's turned in. They just come by, there's no questions asked. They dump it in a bag, and we give it to the DEA, and they destroy it. And like I said earlier, I just want to reiterate, being partnered with DPI was able to this drug drop box, but if you notice, a lot of these students are getting their drugs. Some are marijuana, some other harder drugs. A lot of the prescription drugs, the opioids, do come from your medicine cabinets at home. So anytime you have any, make sure you come by the Decatur Police Department. You don't have to live in Decatur. Come by and stick them in, no questions asked, and they are destroyed. So if you really take an effort there, you're cutting off what's available out to the public and the kids. Also, we've had a few overdoses in Decatur. Officers have rolled up on suspicious cars. They basically found there's no juveniles or students. They're usually 21 or over, but we found them in the crisis and they've overdosed and they're close to brink of death. And we get medical help to come in, and not all of them have been saved. Fortunately, but this year the Decatur Police Department and Fire Department has went together, and we now have the Narcan, which I'm sure everyone here knows what it is. We have the injectable Narcan kits. They're in the supervisors' cars. The police department has them, and fortunately, the police department hasn't used it yet. The fire department has used some recently, and they were able to save that person. And I'm not going to give you any details, but kind of how, I guess, this came about. We had a young lady that's 26 years old. 26 years old, you probably think you probably went to college. You're living your somewhat young adult life. You think about things. Well, she goes into one of the local businesses, finds a small coin purse, looks inside and sees a plastic bag full of a gray powder. She doesn't know whose it is. It's not hers. She don't know how it got there. But she decides to ingest it through her nose. But then she goes back out to her friends where she seems quickly passes out and becomes unconscious in the booth. So they call 911. That young lady took 4 doses of the Narcan to be revived. And at the point that her friends called the 911 and the fire department and police got there, her lips already turned blue. So she'd already shut down where she wasn't breathing. So luckily, the fire department used Narcan. They injected 2, but the EMS had to use 2 that they put into the nose by the nasal cavity, and it brought her around so they could transport her. So we do, like I said, the police department hasn't used them yet, but we do have them. And I think it's a good thing because we are prepared to respond to these kind of instances. Kind of getting into the statistics and numbers that we've responded to. We only have 4 reported incidents involving marijuana in offenders under the age of 18 years old since January 1st of 2017. It's not a miscalculation, it's only 4 instances, but that means it was reported to us and the officer actually came in contact with someone. We have calls of people using drugs at different times. We respond, they may be gone before we get there. I want to talk a little bit more about the hot spots later, but that's 4 reported incidents, which just goes along with Dr. Dewey's charts. The usage is down, but we only have 4 so far, which is good. We have no instances of DUI, intoxicated people under the age of 21, no DUI arrest, which is great because we have had them before. There has been 3 instances involved underage possession of alcohol, but each person was over the age of 18 and under the age of 21. And of the 3 instances, they were stopped in a safety check, and none of them were from the city of Decatur, which is good also. But so we've only had 3 instances involved underage alcohol possession that we've reported. Traffic safety checkpoints. It's what people used to call roadblocks. Now they're traffic safety checkpoints. That's the legal term for them now. We've conducted 8 since January of 2017, January 1st of 2017, and it's kind of I have to read it off so I don't get it wrong. There were the 3 marijuana-related arrests with offenders under the age of 21 years old, and 2 marijuana-related arrests with offenders over the age of 21 years old. But again, none of those were citizens of Decatur or students of Decatur. There was 1 underage alcohol-related offense and 2 DUIs involving offenders over the age of 21 years old. But again, there's another traffic-related arrest, but none of these people actually live in the city of Decatur. They're coming through Decatur. Just talk about some hot spots that are reported to us that we check often, especially when we see kids after school congregating and moving into a certain area. But just so that you're aware of it, if you see it, you can call, because a lot of times they're congregating, they're going to do probably 1 or 2 things. They're probably either going to fight, which we don't have very much of, or they're going to mess around with marijuana, or or associated with people that are doing marijuana. The after-school hours was the cemetery near the Glen Creek Preserve. I don't know if that's off between Sycamore Drive and the old part of the cemetery. We find students down there all the time congregating. Unfortunately, there's only been 1 arrest with marijuana there in the past year. And also that student was not from Decatur; she was from out of the county. So I really kind of question why are these people here, kind of thing. Especially after school. The dead end of Dearborn Park, which is on the southeast side of the town, behind Lily Hill Baptist Church. Some students go over there and smoke marijuana. We get calls for it, we go, we don't always catch them. Sometimes we find the remnants of it. The stairwell of the Westport Square parking garage, a lot of students like to go there after school and hang out in the stairwells. McCoy Park and Oakhurst Park has seen some drug activity, but usually it's, when they're doing it, they're in the far back corners, kind of the wood line. They're not just right there in the center doing it most of the time. Again, we monitor these areas after school and we do the best we can. And then sometimes people call and say they think someone's using drugs, so we respond. And sometimes they're going there, sometimes they're not. But we do what we can to see if we can educate and keep them from doing these drugs in public places. We have, kind of go back to school resource officers. We have two. A lot of places don't have any, but we are fortunate to have two. One is Officer D'Amico, and he's been a school resource officer for several years now, and he's assigned to the Renfro Middle School. A new resource officer we have is Tiffany Edwards, and she's assigned to the high school. And this is her first year, starting this school year. They both work closely with the faculty, staff, and the students. Some of you may know Officer Phillips that was here before this year. I've been out with him in the public before on the square, special events, and I've seen these students and parents come up to them and say, hey, how you doing? And talk to them, tell them about their college, what they're doing, where they're working, like their old friends. So having the SROs in schools doesn't just do more than just maintain order, but it gives them somebody to talk to and gives us somebody, we can relay messages to so that they, they're not pals, but they have somebody they can look up to and get information from. So it's a good program, and we've had it now for full time for over 8 years at least, so hopefully it'll continue. Another stat, a year ago we did a compliance check in the city of Decatur, where we went to all the consumption locations, retail package locations that sold alcohol. We used an underage operative that went in without an ID and cash in their pocket and a camera, and they tried to purchase alcohol. Now, one or two of the businesses were actually closed, so it still counts as an attempt, but they were closed. But out of the ones that were open, no one sold to the student. He looked old enough to be 21. So fortunately, none of the businesses sold to him. So that's a good thing. So basically, we were 100% in compliance with the underage alcohol consumption or retail package, which is good. I promise you we'll do another here soon. I don't know when. We don't try to display it because we don't want anyone to tell, but we are going to do it one in the near future. That's really all I have. I hope you got something out of it. Again, thank you for having me here. Thank you for coming tonight. And I'll be around for the questions at the end if you have any. Thank you.
Katie's pulling this up. I'm going to talk loud for a minute. The number one source of information for kids that they believe is their parents. Now, you're not the number one that they get it from, but you are the most believable source. So as we're sharing tonight, I see the computer booting up, so I'll just go ahead and add that in a minute. As I'm sharing tonight, I do want to just remind you that although they're rolling their eyes and telling you don't know what you're talking about, or oh my God, you have to listen to this again, please know that keep it up, because you are, and actually law enforcement, they listen to their parents, their healthcare providers, and law enforcement as the believable sources. Now, above that, they get information from the internet, they get information from their friends, but they don't trust that information the way they trust information from you. How we doing, girl? Well, is it? There it is. Where's my key to get me over? That one? Forward and backward, how about that? I'm not as used to a microphone, so thank you guys. I'm Terrie Moore, and I'm the director of the Decatur Prevention Initiative. I have a couple of more of my cohorts with me tonight that I'd like for them to kind of give a shout out. Miss Dee Anderson, who's been with me for over 20 years, since we started in Decatur, I think. And our newest add is Marnie Grodson, who is our Youth Development Coordinator. So I'm so glad that everybody is here with me tonight. Teen challenges. What are they facing? Because Dr. Duty, and I think everyone else has alluded to and talked a little bit about all the stresses that our kids are under. So first I wanted to show you this one because some of y'all feel like you're on a roller coaster sometime. You never quite know which kids you're going to be picking up that afternoon, right? When I show data for you tonight, I do want you to know where that data comes from before we get any further into this. Dr. Duty mentioned the data. We rely strongly on the only local data that we really have, although there is some that I'm trying to access from the school now that they've done with what you and I are thinking of as the Student Life Center. I couldn't get my hands on that yet, but I will share that with you guys as we go through the year. But the Georgia Student Health Survey surveys 75% of the kids between 6th and 12th grade, each grade level. So we're not talking a small sample. I know that folks do keep saying, well, what about the CDC survey? Well, that's a great survey, but we can't get it drawn out for Decatur because that's how their rules are with their survey. And also, they only do 2 classrooms. So with the Georgia Student Health Survey, you're doing about 75% of your students minimum per grade level, or the data just doesn't get able to be put into everything, and everybody down at the state gets very upset about that. So as we're looking at this, guys, and you hear us talk about our data, that is what we're relying on. Now, yes, kids do under and over report depending on who you're talking to. However, I will tell you that on this survey, there are some trick questions built in that actually ask questions about certain types of drugs that they have done. Those drugs don't exist. And nobody, and I mean nobody, out of 1,700 kids, nobody says they do that drug. So they are building it, so at least we're not getting Christmas tree results. So that's what I'll be sharing with you tonight. And this is from the different years, but right now, probably most of what you're going to be seeing is from 2016, 2017. This stuff isn't a mystery though, it's just kind of bulky. Go into the Georgia Department of Education, ask for the Georgia Student Health Survey, and you can Google it, it's right there. Look up Decatur, okay? When we surveyed kids in the 6th to 12th grade, and those are the primary ones who get surveyed. They have an elementary, but it's very small. 23% of these kids report drastic changes in their behavior or personality in the last 30 days. So I want to see a show of hands. How many of y'all have seen a drastic change of behavior or personality in the last 30 days in your child? You've seen, so you're on the roller coaster. And this is pretty normal. This is what kids are going through as they go through middle school and high school. We have asked them, though, what was on their mind. And now, the Georgia Student Health Survey does ask a lot of other questions. They're not all just alcohol and drug related. And so I wanted to get to some of those first because not everything is about alcohol and drugs. There are other issues that we're all concerned about. 18% of our kids have considered dropping out of school in the last 30 days. And I know when I was that age, I would have probably said, yeah, every day. 36% report symptoms of anxiety. When we talked about mental health concerns earlier, here we are. A third of our kids are saying they're having some sort of anxiety. 12% reported that they felt severely out of control, either a danger to themselves or to others. 11% report throwing up, avoiding food, etc., to make themselves lose weight. So we want to just kind of give you a picture. For some of you, we said, what are your kids facing this year? These are some of the things that they say that are on their mind. And if that wasn't enough, 21% of them have worried about another student hurting them. 8% have been bullied or threatened in the last 30 days. 9% have been mocked, tormented, or harassed on a social networking site by other students. Now, I'm going to divert for a second. Have any of y'all been mocked, tormented, or harassed on a social networking site lately? Marnie, raise your hand. Yes, okay. Have you been hassled? He's talking, yes. It doesn't matter. We all get some of this, okay? And some of you already know some of what your kids are going through. And the next slide I want to show you is, even though the numbers here are very small, to me, I want to really pay attention to this number. Even though the numbers are small here, we need to operate as if one is too many. Okay. Are we on the right spot there? Okay. 16% of our students between 6th and 12th grade have considered harming themselves on purpose. And for those of you who are interested in this, we will upload this onto the DPN. I'll put my PowerPoint on the DPN website too, so you don't have to worry about taking pictures on it. 8% have harmed themselves on purpose. And 8% sounds like, oh, that's not that many. But I broke it up. That's 140 kids. That is way too many children. And again, this is we could turn this around and say 97% of them have not attempted suicide. Well, that's great. But 54 have between 6th and 12th grade. This is why we're starting. Okay, what's the new term for it now, Lauren? The Student Success Center? They're changing the name. The Student Life Center until you hear otherwise, okay? Student Growth Network, great. Because this is why we are starting the Student Growth Network. This is why we've been pushing for more resources in this community. Because I do want to say that even though we collect this data from the school, some of this stuff isn't happening in the school. This is a whole child. It's happening in the community. And we're going to have an access point for them to have the Student Growth Network at the school. So when we use the word students and stuff, I want you to be very clear with me. The school is not smoking marijuana. The school is not making itself throw up. These are our kids who are going in, having struggles before they go, while they're there, after they leave. And we're all dealing with them. So we're trying to build resources on many different levels. That is one of the big resources that I really see coming in. Very excited about. Dr. Doody reported this. Now, I wish I had been as clever as he was, because I really am trying to not be a death educator, and I really am trying to not just try and scare everybody to death. So I wish I had done this chart in a different direction, but I think this will make sense to you guys. The percentage of DHS students who have smoked, who have done this in the last 30 days. Now, I look at seniors only because that is our high number. Now, certainly, you can go back in and look at the data from 6th grade on up, and I'll get to a little bit of that in a minute. But we've been collecting this data for quite a while. Now, I will tell you that 2011 to 2013, the data stunk. For some reason, there were computer glitches. We did not get the good numbers that were really enough to battle the report on. But in 2011, I want you to look at the top number. That is alcohol. We went from, 25%, and then we had a little couple of years break. Maybe we weren't doing quite as many support services. There were some other things going on. But by 2013, we hit 42% of seniors drinking in the last 30 days. Then we hit 45%, and I was alarmed. I think, Nia, I met you on 42 when we were doing some of these things. We hit 45, and I got really concerned. More concerned because I will tell you guys, this does not look like surrounding communities. This does not look like some of the other high schools that they've asked me to compare these to. Then last year, we hit an all-time high, I hope. We hit 51% of our seniors had drank in the last 30 days. But this year, that number has dropped down to 39%. Yes. And I will tell you guys the reason I wish I could say, okay, this is because of the Parent Network, or this is because of the Student Success Center, or this is because of this or that. This is a combination of what this community is doing. There is no one thing I can point to. Now, when I write all my nice little reports for all my grant people that we get funded through, yes, I have different areas that I say we can point at that, we can point at that, we can point at that. Somewhere in this area, Decatur Prevention really started focusing on environmental strategies and not so much just one-on-one with kids. We really started looking at this as a health problem in the community, because it is. This is a health problem. And somewhere in this area, we started the Parent Network. And we saw compliance checks go up. We saw enforcement go up. We saw parents starting to talk to each other going up. The kids saw our signs in the sand going, parents who host lose the most. We put the message out there in this community. And this is where we need you guys. Because y'all are the ones who see the good and the not so good messages. And it's up to us to challenge those. But we do know, and I really did not believe this. Now, I don't have the data for the 10th grade, but I will tell you that peak year for seniors, we were already seeing this decline for 10th graders. And we figured we'd gotten the 10th graders a little bit earlier before they had started their use period yet, or started really in the heavy drinking. And I could track it, guys. Perception is everything. It doesn't even have to be reality, guys. Perception. Perception of parental disapproval. I perceive that you disapprove. Just because I see you reading that article that Lieutenant Ross has posted on Facebook about, oh my God, another compliance check, I can't believe it, or there's that sign. Perception of parental disapproval goes up, drug use goes down. They told me this, I go to all these trainings, they told me this around the country, they were seeing this trend. I really wasn't sure I believed it. And darned if it didn't start happening, guys. So we are, these are alarming numbers regardless. 54 kids who tried to hurt themselves. Oh my God. But on the other hand, I do want you to look at these numbers. We are making a difference. The binge drinking. Look how much, any of y'all in here, okay, Deborah I know works for CDC. Any of y'all do research for a living, work with the health profession? Oh my word, yes. So you know what a big deal, and some of y'all are just numbers people. But when you can get seniors to drop from 37% to 26% of drinking, oh my God, that's a huge number. That is an incredible win. Big win. And then my favorite one is the marijuana one, and that's something we'll talk about later this year, but we all stay confused about the state of marijuana these days. But I will tell you this, our kids are confused too. And I was very concerned because last year, I guess in April, March or April, I got an email from one of my coworkers in another area who said, before the UGA stats come out, I want you to know that Decatur just hit #1. So for last year, 2015-2016, for the 6th to 12th grades, we were #1 in the state of Georgia in marijuana use. Now, I know Decatur prides itself on being #1, guys, but this is not the area we wanted to do it, okay? But before those numbers could really go viral on us too much, the good news came. We have dropped. We are now #4. I'm thrilled. I was jumping up and down. That is a huge win because when you take that into the count that also #4, we're seeing marijuana rates go down among a lot of kids anyway across Georgia. A lot of us are working on getting the word out about marijuana. And regardless of what your feeling is about medical marijuana, that's very different than what these kids are using. CBDs are very different. We're seeing it go down. 92% of our kids have not smoked in the last 30 days. That is incredible. But look, even among our seniors, we went from 31 to 20. That is a huge drop. These were different classes of kids though, and some years better than others. So I thought what I would do is I would just show you a little bit about the classes. That red number down at the bottom, that's when those groups that graduate. Does anybody here have a child who graduated last year? I know Nia, you did. This is your son's class? Okay, your son's class, our daughter's class. That red group was that crowd in the 9th grade. The next year, I followed them and pulled out their 10th grade numbers. 11th grade numbers, 12th grade numbers. Now, if you will notice, we saw a drop among the same group of kids too. So it wasn't just that we're saying, oh, this number's going down among 12th graders every year. We're seeing this number go down even among the kids who the year before were reporting a higher drinking rate. We're seeing binge drinking go down. Tobacco use, guys, we got to stay on that one. It's one we tend to ignore, but I want you to hop over to the last column there for a second and look at vapor products. Even 15%, that's pretty high. When we thought we were over the tobacco and the kids thing. And a lot of times we see them then switching from vapor products to cigarettes. You will see that there's a slight drop in the marijuana 30-day use among those seniors, and a nice drop in the prescription drug use. So the message is getting out there, guys. We are making a difference. And this is why you bother to try and find a parking space tonight, or why you walked over. Is not just what you learn, but the kids know you're in here. Oh my God, there's a group of parents in the community who's not holding a solo cup tonight. They're out here saying, no, this is not a good idea for our children. Okay. This is not a good idea for our children. Anybody got an 8th grader in the audience? How about a 9th grader? Oh, I did that. Yay. Okay. This is the same group of kids when they went from 8th grade to 9th grade. Now, if you ask me, the numbers are too high anyway. When you're looking at 8th graders, hello. But when they ask about alcohol, 30-day use, 4% of them when they were in the 8th grade, they're now 10th graders, okay, this data. They're now 10th graders this year. But in the fall of their 8th grade year, it was 4%. By the time they hit, probably, Dwayne, when, October, November when we surveyed them? November. By November, that had gone up to 10%, more than doubled. The marijuana use more than tripled. And the prescription drug use, I wanted to give you a little caveat on prescription drug use. Our survey is very hard to determine how to, they separate out a lot of these drugs and you can't add it back in and try and get the numbers right. So the question that I look at is, why did you use, if you used prescription drugs in the last year, why did you use? And that changed from the 6th grade, from the 8th grade being 6%, said they had used some kind of prescription drugs that were not prescribed for them in the last year. By the time they got to 9th grade, 12%. You'll see some small little print down there though. That is the non-medical use. I am not here to say that it is okay for your daughter to take your son's medication for the same illness. That's a bad habit, a bad example for the kids to get in. However, I wanted to break this down a little bit clearer, and so I pulled up the recreational use of those prescription drugs because some of them said they were using those medicines for medical reasons. So, non-medical use went double in that 1 year, from 2% to 4%. Again, a number that's way too high. Now, regardless of what they tell you or what you may hear, not everyone does it. And that's where I want us to all start getting on this page, because I've presented you some pretty horrid numbers and some tough things to hear. But I also want to say that not everybody does this, and you should not expect your child to be doing this, and, oh, this is just a teenage thing that they're going to be doing. No, not everybody does this. Now we're finally in a good minority of not everybody does this. I expect you not to do this. If something were to happen, let's have some things in place to help you if this becomes an issue. Because I do want to remind you guys, how many do we have here tonight, Ms. D? Around 50-ish? So chances are that about 15 to 20 of us have our lives directly, have our families directly impacted by addiction. This is a disease, guys. And so, yes, we know that not everybody does it, but once someone starts and there are genetic factors that play into this, that it's not always just, oh, I made a bad choice. No, this is genetics that play in here. You are looking at kids who, when the doctor, my daughter broke her collarbone last spring. Oh my God, the pills they gave that child at 19 years old. So this is not about, oh, a child making bad choices. This is about a disease. This is about an addiction. This is about somebody, this is not a choice. Nobody would choose this. However, there is good news. 76% of our kids have an adult at school that they feel like they can talk to. Thank you for our SROs, our counselors, our administrators, and our teachers, and even the lady in the lunchroom. 98% have another student they can talk to. 91% of them would help somebody who was being bullied. 81% feel like they fit in. And 85% of kids, our kids, feel connected to each other. So even though we have all these other things that are going on, I do want to throw that in there too. That we have kids who are feeling connected or are feeling supported. We just want to build that even more. Make that even more accessible. Make it okay to say, I'm having an anxiety attack today. I'm depressed. I'm struggling with my drug use. I'm struggling with something at home. Our community is building resources to address these issues. We would like for you guys who have not joined us yet, or if you have joined us, to become even more active in this. When we speak of prevention in youth development, we must be articulate, not just about what we are trying to prevent, but what we're trying to promote. Being problem-free is not the same thing as being fully prepared. And we will be working more this year to bring you more workshops to help you be more fully prepared. I want to do a little shameless plug for a minute. We have a youth action team. The Decatur Prevention Initiative has a group of leadership kids who are doing prevention programming in the schools. The kids are thinking of it, they're designing it, they're doing it. They will have an event this next Thursday for International Overdose Awareness Day, where they'll be working with staff and kids on bringing awareness to this. One of our representatives is here. Raise your hand. There you go. Jordan's back here. And this would not have been possible without, oh, it got cut off and I was giving it such a good plug. The Decatur PTA, the high school PTA, and then I know that you were in with that crowd that approved for these kids to go to camp this summer. They went to leadership camp and they are planning events for their peers. Join us this year, guys, as we build assets for our youth.
We do want to make it available for anyone to ask questions of our speakers tonight.
Number 20. Okay.
Here.
Number 20? Okay. Number 21 is Sarah Joyner here. Sarah, you just won a drug lockbox for your home.
I'd like to invite Mr. Sproul, Terrie, Officer Clark and Lori to come to the stage if you would. We'd like to open it up for questions for anyone. I'll be in the audience with a microphone, and Deborah too, maybe? We've got 2 microphones, and if you had questions that you wrote down on a note card and you just want to pass that to the end of the aisle, that's okay as well.
Well, they're putting us on the spot up here.
We are putting you on the spot, but we'll just go for a few minutes. Terrie, I'm going to let you.
Well, that's scary. Okay. All right. Okay, questions?
I wrote on my note card, can I just ask my question?
You certainly may.
I'm just curious, particularly in regards to where you were talking about purchasing drugs within Decatur. How does that happen? How do they do that?
Do we need to repeat the question?
So the question I think is, how do kids manage to purchase drugs in Decatur? Because you were talking about that he wasn't going somewhere else to get the heroin and the cocaine, it was being bought here in Decatur.
Well, it's not very expensive anymore. So you give them, allowance or whatever that you would normally give your child for the weekend. It can be used, it's $5 here and there. There's a network of the kids just know who to ask, who to get with. I remember one day I was in the car with Joe driving and a car passed us and he goes, "Oh, there goes my drug dealer." One of the times he was clean. So it's just, and I know that we got the statistics from the police department, but they're sneaky. They're teenagers, which are sneaky, and then if they're into the drugs, they're even more sneaky. And we're just not catching them. So it's really, really easy. It's really, really scary, but it's really easy.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm wondering what Decatur High School is doing inside the high school during the day with either some of these messages, some stories like yours. Are they hearing these stories? Are there peer testimonials? What's happening during the day when our kids are in school? We know there's the required health education thing, but that's the textbook. So what's happening with these really raw stories and scaring them and also providing chances to talk?
Well, we're probably not doing as good a job as we can. We do at the beginning of the year, we had meetings with each class. I think your kid can testify to that. Started the first day of school with the seniors. I think we had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that week. So seniors, I think then we did freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and we talked about kind of holistically the school rules and the policies and about making good decisions, and including the counselors. We didn't want it to be a negative thing. So it was some things about discipline and social media, but also things about, drug use, and, we kind of kept it real with the kids as far as when we asked them, hey, do you know people that use drugs on a regular basis? And Dr. Jones did that. And, we had a significant number of students. As the grades went up, as indicated by the stats, more students raised their hand. It was never self-identified. It was more about, do you have a group of friends or do you know people that do that? So we do that. Some of the things we put in place, we used to do the drug dog 4 times a year. And it's not just drugs. He also is trained to do gunpowder, some other things. But it used to be 4 times a year. And Dr. Duty, when he came aboard last year, increased that to 10 times a year. So it's not always a convenience for us as administrators when the drug dog shows up. So I've been in charge of that, and all I do for that is give them dates. Don't come on these days. So otherwise, they won't tell us, even as admins, we don't know when they're coming. So they'll do, generally we'll do classrooms, and we can't cross periods, so we can't go within that, for our first period, we can only do it during first period, because you can never do a kid's stuff twice. So we'll do a period of that, and then we'll do lockers, selective lockers, and then we'll do a parking lot. And that's generally, and like I said, nobody knows when it's coming, we know when they're not coming, but that has deterred over the years. We found far less nowadays than we did at the very beginning. And it was never anything, it wasn't anything super significant. We would, find marijuana from time to time, and that kind of thing. Our kids report things more to us than you would think than in the past, either intentionally or by accident, because we do have a staff that really listens well to kids and will notify us when they hear things are going on in the building. So, as a teacher, when I talk, that's one of my traits we talked about the other day, just when kids have a few minutes free as a teacher, that's your grade or whatever, but you're actually listening to the kids, and we encourage the teachers to always listen to the kids and report. And once we get a lead to something, it's kind of like, we don't stop till we get to the bottom of what's going on. And one more thing about that is that we went from 2 assistant principals, now we have 4, and I don't even do discipline anymore. So I'm the 5th guy outside. So that does help us having more eyes on the building that's not tied to a classroom all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Spool.
Can I respond to that a second quickly? Just for everybody in here, because I think it's a natural thing to want to scare our kids. However, if you will notice when you go down the expressway and you see a police car, you slow down for how long? This is also something called the Jaws effect. And that kids, when they heard about the Jaws movie, now adults, we thought, oh, well, we won't go to the beach anymore and swim. They actually saw kids going to the beaches and swimming, the Jaws effect. So we have to be really careful about trying to do a lot of the scare stories, and that's, I think, our first impulse is to want to do that, because that's an easier answer. We can throw somebody up on the stage one time, and I think it's good for them to hear something. But what we really are seeing that makes a bigger difference is somebody who has had some tough times, maybe didn't use, and how did they avoid not using? Okay. So when we're doing stuff with Decatur Prevention Initiative, we're really starting to focus on, we want to avoid the Jaws effect and want to do something that is more long-term and meaningful, even though everybody does like having the Jaws of Life come out and do those shows and stuff, that is probably not the best use of our minutes that we get in front of these kids.
I also wanted to talk about the Decatur Student Life Center, the Decatur, whatever we're calling it now. After Joe died, I started what was called what I'm calling Joe's Fund. And what we did to try to kind of investigate what we would do with the money raised, which people have been very generous. We started kind of researching around what other school systems were doing. We found Marietta City School System, and they have what they call the Student Success Center. And what they've done is they pull all of the student support. Like what the principal found out was that kids were not dropping or failing out of school because of the lack of academic support. They were dropping and failing in school because of the lack of the other types of support that they need. So right now in Decatur, and it's getting better, but for instance, the social workers are in the central office. So if a kid needs a social worker, they're not going to have access to them in the central office. And some of that is because of space, and there's nothing we can do about that. But the idea is what we're trying to create is that there is all those services in one area of the school. So if you take my son, he had a depression and anxiety, which led to drug use, which led to addiction, which led to attendance, academic issues, which led to some point legal issues. And I could never get all of those people to talk together and work together. And oftentimes they said, I won't work with your son because that other group is working with him. The mental health people didn't want to work with the addiction people. The addiction people didn't want to work with the mental health people. So what we're trying to do is put all that in. And so if a social worker is working with my son, they can lean over and say, hey, are you working with Joe on his academics? Or has his probation officer come in today? I need to talk to him, right? And the nurses are there. So maybe a kid needs an aspirin. Maybe a kid needs his college transcript signed. Maybe a kid needs to talk to somebody because their older brother's beating them up. Maybe the kid needs to talk about drug abuse. to try to remove the stigma of that all kids need to go down in this part of the building to get help. And at Marietta City, more than half of the referrals are from other kids, bringing their friends in and saying, they helped me, you can trust them, come in here. So that's what we're trying to do with the Student Life Center, the Student Network, I don't know what it's being called right now, but that's what we're trying to do is kind of this whole, and I hate the word holistic because it's overused, but this kind of collaborative effort at helping the kids. From little one up. Right now we're doing triage, I think, with the high school kids, but the idea is that it would be, and Joe's Fund will help support some of those activities.
Didn't y'all help support stress-free Wednesdays?
Yes, one of the things we had the surveys that we did with the kids last year is the stress kit coming up. So Joe's Fund, we worked with Pathways, which is right by the Chick-fil-A. They came in for, I think, 12 sessions, right?
That's okay.
Yep.
12 sessions,
Yep.
6 in the morning and 6 at night to work with kids on stress. We also had a parent workshop for parents who are having stress, but also how to help their kids. And another fun thing is we had Pops, King of Pops yoga. And I about cried because I walked up to the high school on a Friday and there were hundreds of kids on the football field in the heat doing yoga. Now, it might have been because they wanted the popsicles, but I don't care, get them there. And so those are the things, so it's really building, I think. We have a great support with the administration and the community.
Thank you to all of you, and we are only going to have time for a couple more questions because we have to relinquish the space. So go ahead.
This one and this lady.
And one lady here as well.
And guys, anybody who leaves a question card, we will post the answer on the Parent Network.
Anybody have?
Might have to ask for brief answers.
Yes, sorry.
All of them. That's okay.
So I don't have a question, I just want to add one thing to that. When Lori was talking about not liking the word holistic, in the social work field, we talk about wraparound services. So if you can envision Joe sitting in that center, or even if it's not a specific place, he has everyone who works with him wrapped around him. So as Lori said, the social worker can lean in and talk. And because in today's day and age with communication, computers, texting, all that is great, but it's just not the same as being able to look over and walk to someone and talk. So it's huge. So if you think about the word wraparound, it sounds much better than holistic, which
I also want to say the stigma attached to kids having problems also starts with the parents. I'm not embarrassed of Joe. I never was. People dropped us like, hot potatoes, whatever you want to call. But if we don't talk about it like it's okay, then it's not going to get fixed. Everybody has some sort of struggles. Let's be okay about it.
Yes.
So I have a quick question. First, Laura, thank you for sharing what you did. That's very heartbreaking and touching.
Sorry, I cried.
We expect that. I think that's funny. And I just might have released kind of down follow-on question for the question earlier about where the kids are getting drugs. Like, are these adults selling them to them? Are there other kids selling drugs to kids?
Well, one thing, I would lock up your drugs at your house, and I would lock up your alcohol, because even if you trust your kid, if they have other friends over, you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And when they are bad, you're no longer using them, go to the police department and get rid of them. Joe told me once that they used to take all these prescription drugs that their group had gathered and put them in no, not a bowl. No, not Coca-Cola, but Mountain Dew. Shake them up till they dissolved, and then shared that. And so, how dangerous is that? Because you don't know what those drugs are for. The other stuff, the pot and heroin, it's just so cheap right now. And kids
Heroin
don't.
is a lot cheaper than the prescription drugs, guys.
Yeah.
That's
so I
what
don't know if the
I
police have a take on it, but like, who's selling it? Is it kids selling to kids, or is it adults selling to kids, or what?
It's all of it.
All of the above.
It's all of it. And it's not necessarily everybody, I think a lot of people come in and, if there's a demand, they're going to come sell it. But Joe was selling pot at certain times. I didn't know it, but, you know. But he was getting it also from the guy in the big pickup truck, you know, that drove through.
Okay, my question has to do with policing. I have a child who's off in college now, but, you know, I knew about parties that were happening because she was very open with me. And there was going to be alcohol, there was going to be drugs, and she wasn't going to be partaking, or if she was, it was going to be very limited, whatever. Well, no, I had to trade between her trust and telling me these things so I could at least structure it so that I could say, oh, I'm picking you up. You know, you're not going to do... It was hard to control the behavior. But I knew about these parties, and I got really upset because these parties were happening in a household where there was one adult who was traveling all the time, and he had an 18-year-old in the house who was having these parties in Decatur, did not go to Decatur schools, but an 18-year-old. And I thought, I want to call the police. But I thought, well, I can't call the police. If I call the police, I've sort of violated my daughter's trust. But I don't understand what happens if I call the police. Are they going to go there and then arrest the kids? Or, I mean, I don't want to get her. All these people in trouble. Is like what to expect if you call the cops and say, look, there's a party going on, I know there's underage drinking, there's probably drugs. What can we expect an officer to do when they get there?
Now, before you answer, she's bringing up one of the hardest problems that we all have to deal with. We don't want to get our kid or other kids in trouble with the law, and it's one of the biggest things that are a problem as a parent. We don't want to have this problem. We know it's illegal, and this is part of why we formed this parent network, was to be in communication with one another. But this is the question that comes to me more often than anything else, is this concern that you will negatively impact a child's life by trying to bring attention to it, and it's a real friction point.
The Decatur Police Department's policy involves juveniles in those situations. I've been to parties before, and you see a lot of people running, and we don't chase them. We don't have enough people to chase them. Unfortunately, some of them get hurt when they do that. The ones that stand by, you know, it depends on what they're doing. If they have some type of narcotic or something on them, you know, their parents are going to be called. We'll call juvenile. And most of the kids and students don't have enough points to go and sit in YDC for a period of time, so they're going to be turned over to their parents. They will go and see juvenile later, and petitions will be filed, and then it becomes a juvenile court issue. You know, if it comes to where someone actually has to be physically detained and arrested and taken somewhere, they're normally 17 or older, and then 17 in Georgia, you're considered an adult. But with marijuana also, if we catch anyone with the simple possession of marijuana, it's the county policy and ours. You take them to the police department, you photograph them, and then you release them, because the jails are too full to take someone that's just had a marijuana joint on them, driving a car, whatever. So that's what we do. That's our policy. We get them back to their parents. We do write a report, and we do turn it over to juvenile. That's all we do.
But I will tell you, one of the best things that ever happened to my daughter is she got caught. And she got caught with school, not by the police, but the school made her go through a program that was one of the best interventions. And I will tell you, it's so embarrassing because I used to teach that program. And I had to go with it with my daughter. And she will tell you, and she's not perfect still, I admit, but she will tell you that that program probably saved her life. So.
Can I give, and I know we're done, but I'll give you a strategy that I use. One day I walked in from work, Joe was there, several of his buddies, obviously drinking, getting high. I called their parents.
Yes.
And I'm like, people will deny it. They'll say, well, it was your kid, not my kid, blah, 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 even if they're sitting right there with a beer in their hand and a joint in their mouth. But what I started to do is like, I know this information, I am telling you, what you do with it is it's up to you.
Yes.
And that way I wasn't, because if they were with Joe at certain times, I knew they were doing it, you know? And so I just gave the parent this information and then let them deal with it.
And the parent network will help you link that back to the parent
parent without it coming back on.
Yeah, I just want to say that if the parent doesn't know about their child's behavior, they can't intervene and do anything. So the best call I ever got was from another parent telling me what she had found on her son's phone that involved my son. I knew nothing about it, and it had been going on for 3 months. I want to say one other thing. My son was arrested with marijuana possession. He's given me permission to say that. He was 16 years old. We chose not to intervene at all with the law, and it was the best thing we ever did because he had to go through this program, he had to be on probation. It came home to him what the consequences were. It becomes a different decision, a much harder decision when your child is 17 or older. But for us, that was exactly the right decision for us and with good outcome. And I would recommend that strategy.
And so let's give a big round of applause to our panel. My name is Decatur Parent Network, and I don't know why you came out tonight, but we're very happy you did. And as you heard Terrie say, being problem-free is not the same as being fully prepared. Folks, we shared a lot of resources with you here tonight. It's your choice to continue to do what you're doing or to be a part of this network this community is trying to put together to help us, to raise awareness, to help put together a student growth network, break the isolation that we all face at one time or another. And we talked about it. Our kids are not bad kids. Kids are kids. And what we're trying to do here in Decatur is develop the resource, develop the tools, develop this network where the isolation is broke. You may not be going through it now. You may not never go through it, but you may have kids that come to your home who use you and talk to you. So what we want to do tonight is just say to you, the Decatur Parents Network, we will continue to invite you, all Decatur parents, to join us, to become a part of the network at any of the levels. And these are the levels. The General Network Friends, a pledge member. We have a pledge. We've got cards outside. If you leave with nothing else, leave with the pledge card.
We'll be sending you an email to invite you.
And the other way is to just volunteer. There's so much to be done. There's so much to be done in this community so that we can help each other and help our kids be successful and make good, positive choices. Thank you again, everybody, for coming out. Please join us in other